Today I'm going to try something a little bit different, and I'm going to give you guys my top 5 games of 2017. I had moderate expectations for this game since the trailers kind of made it look like we would be getting what is essentially a PT clone made by the same company that brought us the last couple somewhat empty-headed Resident Evil games, which kind of turned me off from the franchise. I really hadn't seriously enjoyed a Resident Evil game since 4, and even that was kind of a departure from the originals, and it sort of rubbed me the wrong way. Even though it was a good action game, it was good for what it was. But when I finally got a few minutes into Resident Evil 7, I really was impressed with how far they went with the concept. Resident Evil 7 is not a generic horror game at all. It has a great setting, it has a unique story, and it has some really awesome characters that give the whole game a ton of personality. And even though it is very much a part of the first-person horror craze that's been going on for the past few years, it definitely sets itself apart from those games like Amnesia and Outlast, with this almost Texas Chainsaw style setting. And that's why it makes my list, because it's actually way more different than you might think when you're going in. And it's probably my favorite horror game I've played in maybe a couple years, probably since Until Dawn.
What do you say we play a little game?
I gotta admit, I do feel a little weird about putting a remaster collection on a list of my favorite games of the year. It feels like maybe this list should be reserved for new content. But they did overhaul it so well that it feels new. And all that time and effort they put into it makes it an excellent experience for fans of challenging arcade racing games like myself. Wipeout Omega has taken lots and lots of hours out of my year, and it's one of the most played games of the year for sure for me. And it is one of the best racing experiences of this whole console generation, despite the fact that it is technically a remastered collection. Man, I adore this game. Over time, I've learned to be wary of games that cite nostalgia as one of their main selling points. They tend to not always turn out well, but Sonic Mania took the correct approach to this type of game, and they focused more on making a great Sonic game first, and letting the nostalgia naturally fall into place as a result of it being on par with the original Sonic games. And it is comparable to those old games, but not just because it looks like them, but because it's as good as them. A lot of people said that it's the Sonic 4 that we've always wanted, but I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority here, but I liked Sonic 4 okay. It wasn't as good as the originals, but I liked it okay. What this really feels like to me was a sequel to Sonic CD. It feels like Sonic CD 2, essentially. And that's pretty cool, because Sonic CD is one of my favorite Sonic games. They really hit the nail on the head with this in just about every possible way. The music is excellent, the levels are a perfect mix of the familiar and the completely new, and the boss fights are some of the best in the whole franchise, I would say. I wouldn't say Sonic Mania excels beyond Sonic 2 or 3. Those games are just masterpieces, you can't touch those. But it does stand among them and the rest of the 90s games. And you're doing a disservice to yourself if you're a Sonic fan and you haven't played it yet. This is a game that I completely fell in love with almost immediately. The story of Aloy and her father immediately hooked me, and watching her grow and become more of a leader in her world was one of the best experiences in gaming I've had in years, let alone 2017. The story and the characters were easily good enough to get this game on this list, but the fact that the gameplay was also stellar, with exciting and challenging fights, interesting crafting and weapon modding, and how all of these elements come together to form a super addicting loop that I have now put over 80 hours into, which is a lot for me. And I actually got the platinum for this game too, which is extremely rare for me. The Frozen Wilds DLC is also excellent, and more than worth the additional cost if you want more of it, which I did. And I actually haven't even finished all that yet, so I really wouldn't be surprised if I end up with over 100 hours on this thing. Guerrilla Games really went all out to make this their best game, and one of the best PS4 exclusives, if not the best. If you get a PS4, you gotta get this game. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is a masterpiece, plain and simple. There isn't much more to say about the game that I didn't say in my gushing review I made a while back, and it's just a timeless classic to me. Out of all the games I've played in my life, and I have deep affections for many of them, but if I'm being honest, there's really only a handful of games that I know I'll be coming back to at some point for more playthroughs. At some point, I go out of my way to come back to them and play them through again, regardless of how old they are, regardless of how much time has passed, and regardless of what hardware they're on. They're just classics to me. Even if it's been years or even decades, it's like visiting old friends to me. And I often go years without coming across games that I feel this strong of a connection with. Well, Hellblade is one of those games for me now. For me, it's not just the best game of 2017, it's one of the best games I've ever played. I realize it's not for everybody, but just for me personally, it just struck such a chord with me, I can't give the honor of best game of 2017 to anything but this game. I just can't do it. If it weren't for this game, Horizon would certainly have gotten it, but this game just hit me out of nowhere. I don't know, it's just very special to me. I think it's great that the top 2 games of the year, at least for me, were able to bring us fantastic, interesting, complicated, and strong female protagonists that weren't over-sexualized, but also didn't have their femininity downplayed either. To me, Aloy and Senua were perfect characters for this year. They were tastefully written, they were expertly portrayed, and they fit into their worlds perfectly. I think that might be the most interesting and important development to come out of the industry in 2017. Thanks for watching. Here are some runner-ups that I enjoyed as well. I couldn't quite put them on this list, but there are some games I had a lot of fun with, and I didn't get around to doing reviews of them. Maybe I still will, I don't know, we'll see. And feel free to subscribe as well. You know, I've been wanting to do a gaming channel for years and years, and I've dabbled in it on a few other projects, but it wasn't until 2017 where I really started my own gaming channel, and that's what this is, and I plan on continuing to do stuff for it well past 2018. So feel free to stick around.